Greetings, brothers and sisters. So this video is really going to be, more of what I'm talking about, this so-called truth community. I've talked about this in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 videos. But let's start here. This is all going to play into that. Let's start here with the end of my video, or a part of my video from yesterday. Also going to talk about Bob Saget and how that applies to the truth community here. So this is Kanye's when he was talking on Instagram from a video, double giant colossal cursor here. That's how I entertain myself. But here is the end of the video. What are those nannies' names?
Them, please, God, today, and have them bring my children to Sunday service this morning. The devil ain't gonna win. You get what I'm saying? This is gaslighting. Kim gets black people out of prison. You know who puts black people in prison? The person that the boyfriend has a tattoo of, Hillary.
So I thought about this yesterday. This is Pete Davidson's Hillary Clinton tattoo, right? I guess they met at some point and he showed her the tattoo. There they are. And they're pals. Right? Couple of pictures, photos, got his arm around her. They're, there's all that. There's a tattoo again, and he has it here on his leg. Cool socks he's wearing. For a guy who was in Andrew Wang's fashion show. But anyways, he's got this Hillary Clinton tattoo on his thigh, or his calf muscle there. And then he also got an RPG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg tattoo, which is on his shoulder. And I was thinking about this because, part of his backstory, aside from being a ghoul, is his dad died in the big event in 2001, right? And both Hillary Clinton and Ruth Bader Ginsburg are a part of a club that is more than likely responsible for that happening. So, whatever's true about his story, his backstory, Pete Davidson, he's literally branded himself with people, I mean, Hillary more than anybody else, that are, more than likely responsible in some way or another for his dad's demise. I mean, if that, I don't know. Like, I don't know it's true or not in terms of his story, but like it's just all part of a show. But he's branded himself with these iconically bad people. And Hillary Clinton was such a warmonger. I've covered her before. And what she did in the Arab Spring as Secretary of State and, her husband over the years and just the war crimes and, just a horrible, like we know Hillary, right? I mean, there's all this exaggeration. I don't know if exaggeration, but made up stuff, possibly, about the Clintons because the right wing, that's, everybody lies. But we know that Hillary Clinton's not a good person just from her, everything about her, right? I've covered her before. And for him to brand himself with, like, how mentally ill do you have to be to get a Hillary Clinton tattoo as a young man? Or as any type of a person? Like, who would want to brand themselves with Hillary Clinton and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? Just because, and like he said, I think on some Saturday Night Live thing, he doesn't know anything about politics. Apparently he doesn't, right? And making good choices. Right? He's going to have Hillary Clinton on his calf, like, when he's 80, like. And so the other piece to this was, this is when he was talking about Kanye, and Kanye took over the stage at the end and did a long rant about, a bunch of things. He wore his MAGA hat. And he did the next following week, he talked about how he's crazy, Pete Davidson's crazy, and Kanye's crazy. But Pete's the good kind of crazy because he takes his meds. And this is part of what's going on here in whatever, stage thing that's happening with their relationships, right? This whole thing, like they're the good kind of crazy, him and Kim, are the good, obedient, crazy people that, mutilate their bodies and, do bad, whatever it is, right? I mean, they're all crazy. But Kanye goes off his meds and speaks some truth once in a while. And, more than most of these celebrities. And they don't. And they stay on their, so this is. But he also said this about Kanye that I missed, and I just happened to pull this up yesterday. And this was important to this video here.
And he started by saying people backstage tried to bully him into not wearing it.
He's talking about the MAGA hat here.
Wore it all week. Like nobody told him not to wear it.
So he's calling him a lie. This was, I mean, it wasn't just a funny piece. It was kind of like attacking Kanye's character and, saying he was a liar and all these things. But here.
I wish I bullied you. I wish I would have suggested that.
He wish he bullied Kanye.
That, it might upset some people, like your wife or every black person ever.
Like your wife. He's talking about his wife here, right? This is from 3 years ago, right? And so, like, he's talking about his wife and other people, all black people, like he's speaking for them about Kanye's wearing a MAGA hat. And that's undermining his relationship with his then wife. So this is 3 years ago when Kanye was running for president, all this stuff. He's wearing the MAGA hat a lot. And Pete Davidson inserted himself into the relationship even back then, right? Again, who knows how much this is scripted or whatever. I'm not talking about that here, but in terms of what we see, like we're watching a show, that's what happened. He said, you wearing your hat must upset your wife, and maybe you should be a better husband. That's what he's implying here. And, like the way this has turned out. And he's calling Kanye crazy for wearing a MAGA hat, but this guy's got a Hillary Clinton tattoo, right? The MAGA hat Kanye's taken off. You still have Hillary Clinton on your calf for the rest of your life, bozo, right? And so again, this is all going to feed into my, talk about the truth community. So I just randomly fast forward to the end where he's talking about medication. I don't know what part this is.
Game in the medicine game. I'm on him. It's great. Take him. There's nothing wrong with taking him.
There's nothing wrong with taking medicine for psychological disorders. Well, there is an issue here that you might want to consider. There's nothing wrong with the medicine game, and I just randomly put that there. So I'm going to comment on this. Here's an article from Vox. Depression and suicide risks are side effects of more than 200 common drugs. Now, I'm not telling people to take or not take medication, right? Because I don't know. It's each person's personal choice. And, it is what it is. I mean, some people, I don't know. There's people who are so, there's some people are on psychological meds that are working for them, and they can't function without them, right? I mean, like it is whatever it is, right? But there is some risk, him saying, there's no problem taking them. Let's hear what he said again here.
There's no shame in the medicine game. I'm on him. It's great. Take him. There's nothing wrong with taking him.
There's nothing wrong with taking them. And so it says here, so here's a long list of the medicines, somewhere down here. These are all, they either have suicidal symptoms or cause depression. And we all know their side effects, right? I talked about this. Daji Kamlesh Patel, who's the current master of the heartfulness system, is a pharmacist, and he was giving a talk. He said, yeah, there's always side effects, right? And so, like this is what you roll the dice with. And these aren't side effects, they're effects. They just don't affect each person. But potentially it's there. Look at all these suicidal symptoms for medication. There's like 100 meds that cause suicidal symptoms, and then another so many that cause depression. And I know people who have been on psychological meds, like different types of psychological meds. I mean, kids I used to work with in treatment centers. And, first of all, like it turns them oftentimes into a zombie. I mean, you see the difference in people. and the more powerful meds, whatever it might be, it affects people differently, but they stop being themselves, right? And there's maybe they don't exhibit certain crazy behaviors anymore because they've been like zombified, but that's whatever it is. But oftentimes, and this happened to me when I was taking Imitrex, which is something that worked great for migraines. And so Imitrex was a migraine medication that imitated serotonin, and it was a lack of serotonin that causes migraines, right? In most people. And so I first took Imitrex, and it was great. Like, and I was really happy. Like, it made me feel happier than I normally felt, right? And and I was like, oh, this is great. I'll just not have migraines anymore. And then it started to make me sick, and I felt like weirder, and I would urinate like a ton. Like, I would go to the bathroom, and then I'd leave to go back to doing whatever I was doing, and I had to go to I had to pee again. It was like such a powerful diuretic, and it stopped. I still sort of felt the migraine like in my body or whatever it was. The pain wasn't as bad, whatever it might have been, but I felt worse and weird. Like, it made me feel like sort of almost having vertigo and things. And so, it worked at first, then my body adjusted to it. And my body didn't like what it was doing, and it said, all right, and started to have a negative reaction to it, right? And that happens a lot with meds, psychological meds. They work at first, and they're great, and people feel good and happy, and then all of a sudden they don't work anymore. And then you have to go through withdrawal to get off of them, right? So there's real issues here. I'm not saying, there's real issues. It's not like they're just some vitamin you take, and then all of a sudden everything's better, right? Like, it's something where there are, side effects, and you have to judge those for yourselves. I don't know that much about them. I don't know what each thing does. I just know I'm very sensitive to medications, and so, but these are all, this is one of the things that are caused depression, right? These are all things that came from the medication's label. Like, if you go and look up any of these medications, it's going to say suicidal symptoms, or it's going to say depression, or whatever it might have been, right? And so this is clozapam. This was Bob Saget was on clozapam. It caused suicidal symptoms, right? So I'm in the editing process, and where I said that there are effects and not side effects, because you often hear, well, these are the side effects. Well, does the medicine have consciousness, right? Does the medicine have a purpose? Like whatever it does, it does. Whatever effects it has, whether they're so-called side effects or the desired effect, right? Like Viagra was originally a medication for the heart. It was something to do with, the heart and the vascular system, and it had this other so-called side effect, and then that became what Viagra did, right? They just said, all right, now this is what it does. Side effect, it might help your heart, or what, You understand this? Whatever these medicines do, these powerful medicines that have an effect on various parts of your body, there are things that you desire. There's the desired effect, and then there's these other effects, right? And these other effects, might be the thing that you experience, and you don't get the desired effect. So it isn't a side effect. It's, it's something the medicine does. It just does it in different people. It might be 1% of the people they do in the studies. It might be 5%, it might be 20%, but it's still an effect. It's just how it's going to affect you, right? But anyways, let's get back to the original video here. And so, again, him saying this, like Kanye said that his taking psychological medications was causing him to not have his creativity. And he's a very creative person. Whatever you want to say about Kanye, whether you like him or not, he creates a lot of stuff, whether you like his creations or not. He's always creating something, right? He's had, fashion. I mean, I think I don't like I wouldn't never wear his clothes, right? I like Kanye, but his clothes, whether you like his music or not, he has come up, and it's not just the music, it's the concepts, and, even what he's done with this Sunday service thing in terms of his choir. You might say he's not really Christian, whatever, right? But whatever he does is creative and interesting, and he's, he's a creative person. He said that, and somebody who isn't creating, he is I mean, he has no purpose. Like, he's somebody who has higher levels of creative, type of, a need to create. Some people have that. They're artists in it one way or another. And so he was saying that the meds he was on was blocking that, right? And blocking his ability to channel God, to have God flow through him, which, is the worst, right? And I was on, like, I had an operation a couple of years ago, and I took, and the guy the doctor couldn't wait for me to take OxyContin, whatever it is, OxyContin. And it was miserable, made me miserable. And, like, it took me a week to, like, get it out of my system. I was on it for, like, 4 or 5 days, and I was in pain. So, I had to switch to something else, but it had all kinds of negative side effects. I don't take anything, right? I don't take aspirin. I took aspirin. I had a headache, and I took aspirin. And, I had a migraine. I get migraines, whatever. Once every couple of weeks, I get something. Like, some are worse than others. But it was a bad one. It wouldn't, and sometimes they last for, like, days. And so I took some aspirin. The migraine went right away, like regular aspirin. But my stomach felt horrible, right? So, like, I can't, I'm very sensitive to these things. And I used to take, drugs. Like, I used to take, like, recreational drugs when I was younger. And so it's been from the heartfulness system that I might become more sensitive to these things. And so I'll take, I'll take antibiotics or something when if I can't shake an infection or something or whatever it might be, I'll take, under the right circumstances, and, the things work. It'll knock something out if I get an infection I can't get rid of or something, or, something like that. Like, I'll take something if I have to. I'm not, like, completely opposed to it, but more often than not, it has some negative side effect, right? It's not that the thing works cleanly, and that's kind of known. So for him to come out and say, look at this guy with his ghoulish, he's got a Hillary Clinton tattoo over here and a Ruth Bader down here on his thigh, and he's got a Ruth Bader Ginsburg tattoo over here, and this frickin' guy, right? He's got these panda eyes, these raccoon circle eyes, sort of like Bob Saget had when he, hit the back of his head, allegedly. We'll get to that in a moment. But here it is.
But, like, Kanye, I know you're like, yo, this is the real me. I'm off the meds.
This was not just about Kanye. This was about a point of view, right? This guy's mentally messed up, right? Like, he got on stage and someone yelled Mac Miller, and he quit the show. And there was another time where he went into the crowd and said that the guy promoting him, or the guy who introduced him wrong, so he wasn't going to go on, right? He has a lot of psychological issues. Plus, he smokes pot all the time, which is self-medicating. And you can't make good decisions when you're on some sort of hallucinogenic or some, I don't want to say hallucinogenic, but you're on a drug that distorts your view of reality. Like, he smokes pot all the time. He was smoking pot so much that Louis C.K., he did a bit because Louis C.K. went to talk to whatever that guy, Lauren Michaels. He went to talk to Lauren Michaels, and he said, you should fire this kid. He smokes pot too much, right? And he was mocking, Louis C.K. for saying that. But, here's a kid who's going to work and smoking pot, on the set of Saturday, they have a whole, like, writer thing they do. That's why their jokes probably suck. Like, they're all stoners, like, and they're sitting there making bad jokes and things that only, like, you have to be stoned to laugh at, right? Even that's not even. And so, that's Tim, right? So let's go to the other news here. Kim Kardashian begs Kanye West to stop claiming he can't see the kids. Please stop with this narrative. You were just here this morning picking up the kids for school, she said commented on the rapper's latest post, which I think has been, deleted. I'm going to come back to that. Why Pete Davidson is no longer staying silent on Kanye West's claims about Kim Kardashian. It says here, Pete Davidson is done showing Kanye West mercy. He's been showing him mercy this whole time. That's why he's just a great guy. He was showing Kanye mercy. Back when he told him to get on his meds and, he's calling him a liar and, that he was embarrassing his wife, right? When we were saying that, he was showing him mercy. He was a merciful person. Pete has said nothing when Kanye murdered him on his music videos, including one involving a fire truck mocking his dead father. He didn't mind when Kanye was coming after him, but when it comes to Kim and the kids, he's not letting that happen anymore. He's no longer staying silent. This is like this weak little ghoul here, right? Here's your first look at Kim Kardashian's skim swimsuit. And so this was on page 6 again. And they're posting stuff about this every day. They love these types of feuds. But if you think about what she said about the kids, like he's picked up the kids, and some need to tell me and you and all the rest of us that Kanye's lying, and Kanye is going on Instagram trying to make his case. Like, it doesn't matter. What we think doesn't matter, right? What, the judge thinks, well, that's going to affect, like, when they're, going through the divorce process, whatever. They have psychological evaluations, those things, right? That's going to affect the structure of their family. But putting this out for public opinion, and this is what I'm going to talk about with the truth community, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, at this point, like, what are we going to do about it, right? Like, I just want everybody to know that he's lying, and, Kanye's saying the same thing, that somehow having this public debate and all of us knowing and being a part of it, this is what I talked about with my ex, when she, decided to, like, slander me to the people that I'm, the Heartfulness organization, people in the Heartfulness organization, including, Dodgy, and, like, ruin my reputation or whatever, make me the villain. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, who cares if what they think? I mean, when I got over it, when I thought about it, I'm like, who cares? It's really important what's true, right? Like, that's something for the truthers. Like, it's only important what's true, and who knows what that is. Like, when you talk about on a spiritual level, I mean, there's levels of truth, right? So I'm going to get into this, but here she is as a person who has had multiple plastic surgeries, obviously to her face and her body, enhanced with, whatever silicone and things like this. And then they, put filters and Photoshop these things to take out anything that would look, And so this is the same kind of thing. This is not what you look like, right? You're posting these pictures, and it's like, for what? Like, so you're deceiving people that they think you look differently than you actually do? Like, so for what? Like, you know what you look like. You know that you've had all this plastic surgery. You know that you're just some, like, made-up plastic Barbie now, and all the Photoshop. And, this doesn't make you, for what? Like, you're going through this divorce. They're posting, she's apparently posting pictures all the time, like trying to reclaim, I don't know, something, through the Instagram modeling. I mean, this is the whole thing why I call it Instagram. You know what you look like. If you're running filters and you're trying to deceive people, and you're really deceiving yourself, thinking that your appearance means something to other people, right? I mean, like, in some real way, and it doesn't. It's just, I mean, yeah, sure, if you want to, look good and you want to put some effort into it, get in, do exercise, and, I understand, like, that's a thing, right? Especially for younger people. You want to take pride in your appearance, sure, clothes, whatever it is. But, like, this is taking it to a whole nother level, right? Where everything is deceptive. Like, why are you showing that picture, right? Like, there's silicone involved here. There's plastic. That's not you. You're not real. Like, these aren't real photos. This is a deception, right? You're trying to deceive everybody. And that in itself is a mental illness. Pete Davidson is riding a rocket ship into space because the world isn't big enough. For him and his Ruth Bader Ginsburg tattoo, apparently Jeff Bezos is taking Pete Davidson to space in his, whatever it is. And it says here, judge permanently blocks release of some photos, records related to Bob Saget's death. I'm going to weave all this into something to do with the truth community. Judge permanently blocks release of Bob Saget's autopsy records. So to start off with, and I've talked about this in recent videos, because people think you're doing something. Like, one thing that you're doing when you're diving into the depravity is, if you're a spiritual person and you're connected to God, then you're sending information back to God. So that, that's something. I've talked about that in the past. That's something that I feel like I'm doing here. But one thing that I'm sure of is the system can't be saved, right? I haven't seen all the comments from yesterday's video, but one person wrote that adrenochrome's real and the satanic something. I wish I saved the comment. Maybe I did. I don't think I did. All these things are real. I don't have the comment, but it's not important. But two of the things on there were adrenochrome and Satanism and something else. I don't know. All this stuff that people believe in the truth community. First of all, I didn't say it wasn't. I said adrenochrome is a real thing, at least as far as I know. I mean, it's in the mainstream media. Whatever, Wikipedia. You can look up. There's something called adrenochrome. But these adrenochrome farms, which I would probably tend to believe that on some level, because there was Lady Gaga was in one of these American Horror Story, whatever show that was. And she was farming children for something that looked like adrenochrome, right? So, they've put this out there for some reason in various levels. Like they've used their shills and their disinformation agents to put this idea out there. And so I would tend to believe that there's something to it, right? Like there's some things that I know to be false. There's some things that I know to be true. And there's some things I'm like, well, that probably is kind of right. This could be right, whatever it is. But the more important question is, can you prove it to this person, and can you stop it? Like the more important thing would be, can you stop it, right? Because all these things that are being reported on the truth community, is there any way to stop them? Is there any way to put an end to them? Is there any way to control other people's behavior? And the Cubies, their solution was just grab people that we think are doing things that are wrong and suspend their, whatever it is, their judicial rights, right? The rights to due process. Throw them in Gitmo, give them some, bogus military trial and execute them, right? That was what people in the Cube movement, that was a solution for them. Take random celebrities and people that, we think are doing things. Because there's a fake list that came out about the island, right? The flight log to J.E.'s island, right? There was a fake list that came out. And everyone promoted it. And, not just the Cubies, but other people. Because this happens all the time. There are people that are either hired disinformation agents that work for the government or some, whatever it is. There's all these people out there in the truth community that are just hired, and they're actual shills, they're actual disinformation agents. Some of them are more prominent than others, but there are people like that. And, they might just be people who leave comments. Who knows, right? There was a troll farm. The Washington Post did an article about this years and years ago, where there was over 100,000 employees that their job was just to go on the internet and put in, disinformation out there, whether through comments, whatever it might be. And so that exists. We know that exists because we see it. We see people who are like, this guy, and there's bots and whatever it is, right? People, and it's just, it's corporations. I saw this with Monsanto. I did a video on Monsanto, and there was this generic comment that was put on my video that people, there's somebody working for their, Monsanto or Bayer or whatever it is now, was going to these videos and then just spamming them with this comment, talking about how great Monsanto was. So, there's all this stuff out there, corporate and governmental trolls. But then there are lots of people who voluntarily put out lies. And they think they're so right about it. They will make something up and they put it out there. And then everyone in the truth community, lots of people in the truth community share it like it's real. And I found time and time again, when somebody sent me something that looked fishy, I would look into it and it was just an out-and-out lie. And people were sharing it because, they're liars, right? They're not, responsible. They're not journalists. And they want to believe it. And so there's so much out in the truth community that people want to believe, and so they share it. So I thought about this. This is the time when Isaac Cappy was just accusing people that I believed, right? I was somebody who, I was the first person, I think, who covered Tom Hanks's, when he had this really weird and creepy skit on Jimmy Kimmel's where he pretended to be one of these, toddlers and tiaras dads. And so he had this fake daughter. And it was really creepy, right? He was kind of saying sexy baby to his daughter and was, you know, it was really creepy.
Poison? Poison is Sophie's favorite 1980s hair band.
Talk dirty to me.
Talk dirty to me. Sexy baby. Sexy baby. You are such a sexy baby. I'm proud of you, proud of you.
And so I covered that. And I thought, well, Tom Hanks has got, you know, he's hiding something. There's something creepy there. But just out and out making stuff up about the guy is wrong. The same thing with Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg has weird things in his movies, you know, weird sort of sexual, you know, things with these kids, right? And I've documented those things. But, you know, that's all we know factually. And so being accused of something falsely and then making up lists and pretending you have information that you don't, and then everybody sharing it and it becomes fact in the truth community is problematic. And that's happened over and over again. There's so much stuff that's out and out deception, whether it's done by some governmental employee or done by volunteer people who aren't truthers because they're putting out lies. They're not about truth. They're putting out lies because they're upset and they want it to be true. And so people who share it without really knowing whether it's true. I mean, there's so many things I get sent. I'm like, well, where did this come from? Why is it out there? You know, that's how I think about everything. I doubt everything now, you know, in and out of the mainstream media and the truth community. Like, there's nothing I can believe in because, you know, there's no journalism anymore. There's a lot of people, well, first of all, the mainstream media and the people who are, you know, training, journalists now, no longer follows journalistic ethics and things. There's a whole levels of training. And then you have an editor that's supposed to make sure that the thing is factual. You're supposed to check and double check and make sure that the story is like your real story, that you're not like, you know, repeating lies or being deceived in these things, right? You know, this Anna Delvey or whatever her name is, Sorkin, this Inventing Anna show on Netflix about this young German woman who pretended to be an heiress, right, and got, you know, busted, and it was a true story. And she was able to, you know, scam people. And then there was a whole thing about, there was a sub-story about the journalist who was covering, who got exposed for lying. But there's no longer any journalism. And random people, many of them who haven't even, you know, graduated high school or college or something, they don't have any training. They don't have an editor, right? You know, people just posting things, pretending to be junior, you know, detectives and posting things, and they don't have even good critical thinking skills. And oftentimes they'll make up lies. And, you know, I shared things in the beginning that weren't true, you know, and I would make my videos in ways that I would exaggerate things. Like I would look for pictures that supported what I was saying. And if there were pictures that weren't supporting what I was saying, I wouldn't post them, right? Like, so, you know, and I realized that wasn't cool. Like, I'm like, that's not, you know, like I'm, you know, skewing, you know, I'm only putting out the part of the story that's the part of the information that supports my theory or my story. And I was claiming things to be facts when they weren't, like so many other truthers. And I said that wasn't cool. So I went through this whole process of, you know, like integrity and saying, you know, we all have to be responsible to be objective and tell the truth the way it is, you know, the way it is, right? Or just say this is speculation. Like I make jokes and I make references and things like this to these celebrities. And I know some of them are like, at least, you know, I could say that Tom Hanks, that thing he did on Jimmy Kimmel, there's creepiness there, you know, like it wasn't cool. But when Isaac Cappy came out and said Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg were pedos without supplying any, you know, just that he was in Hollywood and he knew, well, did you have anything, right? Do you have any, you know, proof of this? Because that's not cool to say stuff like that just because, you know, you have whatever it is, right? And so being truthful and being honest doesn't exist because of this in the truth community, because of disinformation agents, which is part of the problem. But the bigger part of the problem is people who themselves have no integrity and don't, you know, and just don't vet things. They hear something, they want to believe it, so they just repeat it, and it becomes something that everyone in the truth community is like dogma. It's like doctrine. It's like, no, we all believe this. Well, because somebody lied to you and somebody started this lie or rumor, and it, you know, it sort of made its way around, And so, yeah, like, so can you prove the thing? That's the first thing, right? The second thing is, can you stop it? And that's the more important thing. Because whether or not you can stop it, like the Bob Saget thing is a great example of this, right? And so I covered Bob Saget and Full House and Fuller House, and there's weird stuff, stuff that they even admitted to. And then there's the stuff that's probably worse that they're not admitting to, like the part of the iceberg that's hidden from our view. But Bob Saget died under very suspicious circumstances, and the coroner and the people investigating it said, well, we don't know how he died. We're speculating that he hit his head in the hotel. He was alone in the hotel, and he hit his head. And so we're just going to go with that. And we're going to close down all the investigation. We're not going to do any further investigating. And we're going to seal, now the judge has sealed all of the documentation. And that is overwhelmingly suspicious, right? So we all know now that there's some other story here because the way they're handling it, right? Because he has fractures all over his skull and bleeding, on his brain. And they're saying that he banged his head, got into bed, went to sleep, and never woke up. And that's completely speculative. And other physicians and doctors and people who are, I covered this. Professionals who are they're not truthers, part of the mainstream media and part of the mainstream medical community, said there's no way he hit his head just once. This is, multiple blows. And so the story doesn't add up, right? And, they rushed to cover it up. The story looks fake as F, and they withheld information. They sort of leaked it out, and they waited, and they didn't put the stuff out right away. The story died in the media, right? They covered it for about a week or two. And, people like me covered it for like a month, but then it died down. Like everyone had moved on, then they released the autopsy, which, remember, I said I'm waiting for the autopsy because something doesn't add up here. But we'll never know. Like, we'll never know. And there's all these people, I know this is what happened, right? But we'll never know what happened. There's all kinds of different theories because we have limited information. And, it's dead. The story's a dead story. And so whatever happened to Bob Saget, and, we don't really care about him. His family obviously wants to cover it up. It doesn't want everyone to know all. They don't. If you saw all the data on there, if they released it, you'd say, "Oh my God, this is not true at all. There's no way he just hit his head." I mean, just releasing the autopsy, it's the same thing. But we'll never know what happened, and even if we do, there's nothing we could do about it, right? Like, I mean, if it was somebody who was good, there's nothing you can do about it. You have no effect. The world is the system is so controlled and corrupt. There's nothing that can be done to bring people to justice, the real criminals in this world. So this idea that the truth community could stop things is not true. And so if you have a comprehensive plan how to stop any of these things, and it could actually work, right? Like, you understand how the system is completely corrupted, how the media, and there's no real media anymore. They just put out disinformation, and they're completely controlled and handled. And so they're not going to report something. And even if they did, that doesn't mean the justice system will pick it up. And there will be outrage from people. Like, people are so pacified. As long as you have your computer and your, full belly and all these things. I mean, when there's going to be shortages, yeah, you'll see there might be some riots and things, but not anything that would, change anything. I've said this for years. One of the things that they fear most is the mob. And the mob is, the people who make their decisions are, they're so protected from the mob, it doesn't even matter. And it's worth the risk right now because the system's imploding economically, right? It's just morally, and it's just collapsing, right? The divine will is now making the system collapse, right? It's, the system's dying, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. The controllers or anybody else. There's no way to keep the system going. It's on life support, right? And so what I do know in terms of my, whatever I believe, I mean, I don't have any tangible proof for other people, is that everything's accounted for, that there's a plan here and there's a divine system in place, and nobody gets away with shit. No one gets away with anything. Like, on some level, all these people will be punished. So your idea of punishing people, it's not even in your hands. It's not for you to do, and it's not, And maybe it is for you to do. I don't know. Like, I don't know, like how it's all going to play out. But it's God's plan. If you're the administrator of whatever punishment, and I'm not saying like some crazy person hears this, like not that, right? But in some way, like you're, in some future existence or whatever it is. But all these people are suffering. They suffer now because they're in hell. Like they're in the hell of their own creation. They're criminal and they're, going against God's will, and they're horrible people. They're miserable people, and their life is hell now. It's going to be hell in the future. And so everything's accounted for. There's no, nobody gets away with anything. We can have confidence that there's a divine system here, and everything will, justice will be done in that sense, right? Not in terms of the governmental justice system, but in terms of the, divine justice. Nobody gets away with anything. You always have to pay for your mistakes, right? You always have to work off your mistakes, and that's for all of us. So, like, we don't even have to do anything. Like, why would we, why would you take it upon yourself to be some sort of avenging angel? And the system is going to collapse, and the power structure is going to come down. That's going to happen. I don't know when, but within, 100, 200 years, I can't imagine it would last that long. And certainly it's going to be, you're going to see governments fall. You're going to start seeing things, right? That, in terms of the overall power structure and the wealth system and the economic system, it's all done. So we don't have to do anything. Like, you can see it's collapsing. So this idea that these things exist, yeah, okay. Maybe we need to know about them so it gets reported back to God, like I said in the beginning of this narrative. Sure. That to me, that's realistic. And maybe we need to know about them because we need to understand what's going on a deeper level. Sure. That's true too. That's positive. I'm negating my own importance here, right? Somebody wrote to me saying, thanks for covering the war atrocities, and you have a platform, and, sent me a couple other links and said, probably most Americans don't care about like you do, but, sent me a link anyway. And I'm like, yeah, they don't. Like, and even if they did, it's nothing you can do about it. You can pray. You can hope, you can put energy into the spiritual aspect of things, but it's not going to change anything because the system's going down one way or another. And it's structured in such a way that if the people, the higher levels of power get taken down, the whole system goes down with it, and then we're all screwed in that way on a material level. And so, you just let it happen naturally. It'll happen naturally, and, there's nothing they can do to stop it, and there's really nothing we can do to expedite it. And there isn't a replacement system in place, and so once this system goes, it's going to be worse for a while. And so just, these are things that I am sure of. Like, I can't prove them to you because they haven't happened yet, right? But, I could just see that the system, how bad the system is. I can see the numbers, the economic numbers, and, just the depravity and the low level of consciousness, and, just the dumminess of our system. This is the year of the dummy, and people aren't doing very well. And so a system is a reflection of, if everybody's crazy, this is what I was talking about with Kanye and Kim and all this stuff. And again, it's all staged, whatever. It's all part of a show. But people trying to win the divorce in public opinion, like people wanting more people to be on their side, and what a horrible person the other person is. And, like I said, when my ex did this, like at some point I realized, well, what does it matter? The truth is the truth, right? It doesn't matter what other people believe. And if the more I try to convince them otherwise, they'll just, the people are going to make up their minds just like the sheeple do. And, we were all once sheeple. Like everybody who's a truther was once a sheeple, right? Like at some point in your life, you believed in all these, all this stuff. I mean, even me, who I didn't like the system, I was dyslexic, and, I never fit in. I didn't understand. We all do sheeple things. We all go along with things. We all, participate in some level, and we're all still sheeple on some level, right? And so, like, it's just, maybe you want to feel superior or whatever because you have more information. But what are you doing to make the world a better place? And mostly it's about changing yourself. Like, how does this information help you become a better person and connect to God on a deeper level? And lots of people say they're, godly people. They say they're religious, but are they really, right? It's a moment-to-moment thing, right? And so, yeah, you can say, oh, the people that are at the top, they're all Satanists. But everybody who, has an ego that runs amok is practicing Satanism, because an ego is what goes away from God. If an ego is unchecked, if an ego, starts to go rogue on the soul, its soul's purpose, and on the divinity that's within it, then you become a demon or, a devil or whatever it is, right? Your ego becomes a demon or a devil because it's no longer adhering to God's plans and the spiritual laws and things like this. And so that's, everybody's doing that to some extent. It's a battle. We're all battling inside the part of us that's divine, the part of us that wants to, do what we're supposed to do and, be a good person and, do, in terms of, following and serving God or whatever it is. And then there's the ego that wants to do whatever it wants to do. There's plenty of people who claim to be godly people and they have big egos and their egos are running amok. And so all that stuff's getting cleaned up at some point. Like I can say it is, you can believe it or not, but there's a divine system here. It doesn't, there's contingencies in the system that will bring things back to balance. And that's, that's kind of what's happening now. And our contribution is what we do, like what we do to participate in that, what we do to change, what we do to grow, what we do to, to be, good, better people and build our character qualities and these things. And that's what we have to offer. Like that's what we can, that's what we can contribute, that we help manifest a better system because everything happens in our internal worlds. And so we change what's inside and then we change the world, right? We change what's inside of each of us personally and then collectively, and then we manifest a better system, better leadership, and a better world. We connect to God and we partner with God and build a society and a civilization and the rules and laws and government based in divine principles and godly connection, right? Like God comes through us, the love, divine love comes through us. This is the heartfulness meditation, which is a facilitator of this practice, right? And then divinity flows through us, and then we, do the job that we're supposed to do. We do what we're supposed to do instead of running our egos running amok. And, in the truth community, people's egos and desires and emotions are running amok. And so that's why it's like, it's no longer credible. All these things that come out are saturated with so much disinformation. And where are we going to fact check it? Like, how can you fact check any of this stuff? I mean, any of it. Like, how can you really fact check anything? There's so much lies and deception. There's no credible sources out there, right? So how are you going to fact check it? You can't. You really can't fact check things because it's just so saturated with lies and deceivers. And so for me, that's why, I've been talking about this. I get these comments from time to time, all the time, where I know people are, they have a warped sense of what's going on. And, I went through these phases myself to get to the place where I'm now and thinking about what's important. Well, to me, what's important is the system's going to collapse. And I've known that for a while. I think all systems collapse. There's all these ancient ruins all over the world and, then even before that, right? Ancient ruins that we can't even see of civilizations, some greater than ours, that have collapsed, right? Our Earth is going to disappear. Our Earth isn't, it's going to transform. There'll be a time when there's no life on this planet, physical life. There'll be etheric life, but there won't be physical life, right? There'll be a time when everything's dead. No trees, no insects, no germs, no nothing. There won't be any material life here. And the sun won't, it's going to last the entire length of the universe. These things are all going to disappear at some point, right? Everything, has its cycle of life and death and things. And so all these things are, going to change one way or another as time goes on. I mean, it just takes a matter of time, and things will be cleaned up when it's the right time for them to be cleaned up. So for me, it's just doing what my soul came down here to do. Finding out what my goal of life is, my true goal of life, connecting to God and, moving forward with that, right? Urgence back to the source. That's what I believe my purpose is. And just, doing that, right? And whatever this YouTube channel, whatever role this plays in it, and I talk about the heartfulness system, which I believe to be a solution, but only if you use it correctly. There's plenty of people who do it, and aren't getting better, they're getting worse, right? Some people, I've talked about this in other videos. So it is what it is, right? it's a shit show right now. Like, it's a mess, and, you know, we all try to carve out a little sanity and our little, you know, do something to make the world a better place and, you know, move forward personally on our spiritual journey. That's, to me, all that you can do. And, you know, if you have a different opinion, sure, you know, you're welcome to it. Like I said, there's different phases that you go through. But at some point, you're going to realize the system can't be saved. And that should change everything. Like, then what do you do? Right? You know, if the truth community doesn't exist to save the system of the world, then, you know, what are you doing here? Like, what's the purpose? So, like, you have to, you know, reevaluate, right? Anyways, only spirituality can save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalaughs and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.